Welcome to Informed Tourist AI. Are you guys ready to dive into this video with me? Seriously, get comfortable, grab some snacks because you're going to want to see this. We're about to expose the top 10 countries where tourists find themselves in handcuffs more often than not. It's like a surprise vacation twist you definitely don't want. I'm talking about getting thrown in jail just for snapping a selfie. What if I told you there's a hidden side to these popular destinations that you probably never knew? Stick around to find out what it is. Stay until the end to discover the most surprising country on this list. And trust me, it's a shocker. First up, we're heading to Thailand, the land of smiles, but don't let those friendly faces fool you. Thailand has some seriously strict drug laws. I'm talking zero tolerance, guys. Even getting caught with a tiny amount of weed can land you behind bars for years. And trust me, Thai prisons are not a place you want to end up. I've heard horror stories. We're talking overcrowded cells, brutal conditions, the works. And forget about vaping. Thailand banned e-cigarettes back in 2014 and they're not messing around. Getting caught with a vape can get you slapped with a hefty fine or even jail time. So if you're planning a trip to Thailand, leave the drugs and vapes at home. Next up, we're flying over to... Get ready to jet set to the United Arab Emirates, a land of luxury, skyscrapers, and some pretty strict laws. Now, I'm all for following rules, but in the UAE, you gotta be extra careful. First off, PDA. Yeah, keep those lovey-dovey displays to a minimum, alright? Holding hands might slide, but anything more than that could get you in hot water. We're talking fines, deportation, even jail time. They don't mess around. And speaking of dressing appropriately, ladies, pack those more conservative outfits. I'm talking about covering your shoulders and knees, especially when you're visiting religious sites. Showing too much skin can be considered offensive and may even attract unwanted attention. Remember guys, different cultures, different rules. When in the UAE, respect their customs because the consequences can be pretty steep. Next up, we are heading to Indonesia, a land of stunning beaches, ancient temples, and yes, you guessed it, strict drug laws. Seriously guys, I can't stress this enough. Drugs are a big no-no in many countries, and Indonesia is no exception. We're talking serious consequences here like lengthy prison sentences, hefty fines, and even the death penalty in some cases. Even possession of small amounts can land you in huge trouble. And it's not just drugs you gotta be careful about. Indonesia is a predominantly Muslim country, so it's super important to be respectful of their customs and traditions. This means dressing modestly, especially when you're visiting religious sites and being mindful of your behavior during the holy month of Ramadan. Remember guys, a little respect goes a long way, especially when you're a visitor in someone else's country. Chapter 4, Saudi Arabia, Holy Land, strict codes. Hold on tight because we're heading to Saudi Arabia, a country with a rich history, cultural significance, and yeah, you guessed it, some pretty strict laws. Now, Saudi Arabia is deeply rooted in Islamic tradition, so respecting their customs is non-negotiable. First and foremost, alcohol is a big no-no, like totally banned. Bringing alcohol into the country or consuming it can get you into some serious trouble with the law. And remember how we talked about PDA being a no-go in the UAE? Yeah, it's even more strict in Saudi Arabia. Public displays of affection between unmarried couples can land you in hot water with the religious police. Ladies, you gotta dress modestly here. I'm talking about covering up from head to toe. It's not just about respecting their culture, it's actually the law, so pack those abayas. Chapter 5, China, the Great Firewall and you. Get ready to explore China, a country of ancient wonders, bustling cities, and the Great Firewall. Now, I'm not talking about some medieval wall here. I'm talking about internet censorship. China has some pretty strict internet regulations, and websites like Google, Facebook, and even YouTube are blocked. I know, right? It's like stepping into a parallel universe. But here's the thing. Even if you use a VPN to access these sites, you gotta be careful about what you post. Criticizing the government or sharing anything deemed sensitive can get you into hot water with the authorities. And, speaking of sensitive topics, avoid discussing things like Tibet, Taiwan, or anything related to the Chinese government's human rights record. Remember, in China, online activity is closely monitored, so it's best to err on the side of caution and keep your online interactions G-rated. Chapter 6, India, Land of Diversity and Deities. Get ready to experience the vibrant culture of India, a country of diverse traditions, delicious food, and ancient customs that you gotta respect. First things first, guys, public displays of affection are a big no-no in India. Holding hands, maybe. Kissing in public? Definitely not cool. And speaking of respecting customs, dress modestly. Especially when you're visiting temples or religious sites, cover those shoulders, ladies, and leave those short shorts in your suitcase. Now let's talk about cows. Cows are considered sacred in India, so be respectful and avoid any actions that could be perceived as disrespectful, like touching a cow without permission or, God forbid, harming one. And when you're out shopping in those bustling markets, be prepared to haggle. But remember, haggling should be done with a smile and in a respectful manner. Don't be afraid to walk away from a deal if you're not comfortable with the price. Chapter 7. Next stop, Turkey, a country where ancient history meets modern-day complexities. Now, Turkey has been through a lot politically, so it's important to be mindful of the current climate and avoid getting caught up in any political demonstrations or protests. And speaking of sensitive topics, avoid discussing the Armenian genocide or the Kurdish issue, as these are highly sensitive subjects in Turkey. Now let's talk about photography. While Turkey is a photographer's paradise, there are a few things to keep in mind. Always ask for permission before taking photos of people, especially women, and be mindful of where you're snapping those selfies. Taking photos near military installations or government buildings can attract unwanted attention from the authorities. And remember guys, Turkey has strict laws against insulting the Turkish nation or its founder, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. So, keep those opinions to yourself, okay? Get ready to explore the land of pharaohs, pyramids, and strict photography laws? Yeah, you heard that right. Egypt takes its cultural heritage seriously, and that includes protecting its ancient monuments. So, while you're busy snapping those Instagram-worthy shots, be aware that taking photos inside certain tombs or temples is often prohibited or requires a special permit. And don't even think about climbing on the pyramids. That's a big no-no. And just like in many other countries we've talked about, public displays of affection are frowned upon in Egypt. Keep those romantic gestures behind closed doors, okay? Oh, and one more thing. Be cautious about what you post on social media. Negative comments or images that could be perceived as offensive to Egyptian culture or the government can land you in some serious trouble. Next up, we're heading to Russia, a country of vast landscapes, rich history, and, let's just say it, some interesting laws. Now, Russia has a reputation for being a bit strict, and that extends to its laws. First and foremost, guys, avoid talking about politics. Seriously, steer clear of any discussions about the government, especially if you're critical. And speaking of things that are frowned upon, Russia has zero tolerance for drug offenses. Even small amounts of drugs can land you in hot water with the Russian authorities, and trust me, you don't want to mess with the Russian legal system. And while you're out and about exploring this vast country, make sure you have your passport and visa on you at all times. Russian police conduct random checks, and not having your documents can lead to fines, detention, or even deportation. Last but not least, we're traveling to Japan, the land of the rising sun where ancient traditions meet modern marvels. Now, Japan is known for its politeness, cleanliness, and respect for rules, so it's important to be on your best behavior. First things first, guys, drugs are a huge no-no in Japan. Like, even over-the-counter medications that contain pseudoephedrine are banned. So if you need to bring medication, check with the Japanese embassy or consulate beforehand to make sure it's allowed. And speaking of things that are frowned upon, littering is a big deal in Japan. Seriously. Keep your trash to yourself and dispose of it properly. Oh, and one more thing, tipping is not customary in Japan. In fact, it can be considered rude, so keep your yen in your pocket and just say arigato gozaimasu for good service. Thanks for watching Informed Tourist AI. Please hit the like button and subscribe. It's free and helps support the channel. Now, if you're anything like me, you're probably thinking twice about those travel plans. But hey, don't let these rules scare you off. Knowledge is power, and now you're armed with the information you need to stay safe and respectful while traveling the world. Now check out one of these videos if you want to learn more as an informed tourist. We've got tons of awesome content on everything from travel tips to crazy laws around the world. What's something surprising you learned about these countries? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to join the Informed Tourist AI community by hitting that subscribe button and ringing the notification bell so you never miss an episode. We'll see you in the next one.